It's not about the alcohol. And that is the one thing I say that's so counterintuitive. If you want to change the way you drink, stop trying to change the way you drink. Accept yourself and see yourself on a roadmap from here to 1 year from now. All right, I'm going to increase my capacity. I'm going to process some of my emotions. I'm going to learn how to set an emotional goal. I'm going to use the iterative mindset to see if I can move the needle on this behavior 5-10% at a time. I'm going to celebrate my wins. I'm going to start speaking nicely to myself. I'm going to love myself unconditionally, whether I'm sober or whether I'm hungover.
Well, welcome to Biohacking with Brittany, the podcast where science meets wisdom. I'm Brittany Ford, holistic nutritionist, biohacker, and mom. And for years, I struggled with gut issues, hormonal imbalances, and the exhaustion of motherhood while running a business. Biohacking and functional medicine became my way back to clarity, vitality, and trust in my body. And that's why I'm here, not just to share information, but to share the practices and perspectives that truly shifted my health and my life. Each week, I bring you science-backed tools, honest conversations, and rituals I live myself so you can return to your own body's wisdom and create longevity on your own terms. Because your body already knows this is just the space to remember. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be back on the podcast. And thank you for everybody's patience as I have been doing a lot and back in Canada now. I know for everyone listening, I owe everybody a couple of solo episodes, and those are going to be coming out soon. But until then, let's talk about the episode that is coming out today. This is all about alcohol. This is all about consumption of alcohol and how to actually drink in moderation as an adult and know why you might be reaching for the alcohol and what to do about it. I learned a lot in this episode as somebody who's sober, who prefers not to drink for health reasons and the implications that, alcohol actually has on a cellular level. I still think there is a lot to be said about the psychological and the emotional component of drinking alcohol. And that is what we dive in this episode today. If you've been following me online, you have been seeing that I've been talking about peptides a lot. I am going to be doing a peptide episode soon. Please stay tuned for that, about my peptide journey, what I'm taking, what my stack is. And I will also do a full episode on the remaining of my travels. So I think I closed off. The last one I did was in Costa Rica. I got to do the Mexico one, talk about my retreat, and then kind of talk about where we're going and what is next. So there's so much good content coming and podcast episodes coming. Stay tuned. If you want to join my community, that is where I am lately. If you are missing me or you've noticed I'm not producing as many podcast episodes anymore, it's because I'm producing way more content in the LongHer Life. The LongHer Life is a beautiful community of women who care about biohacking, longevity, peptides, everything under the sun, everything we can say that's uncensored. And every woman in there is hardworking, who cares about her health just as much as you do. And we really do talk about a lot. We do a lot of deep dives. I do a lot of Q&As in there. I do a lot of peptide education. I just released the peptide suite recently, which has all the information on peptides by the type they are, what your goals are, the motherhood room, which is like if you are dealing with fertility or postpartum and how to really heal from that using peptides. I'm going to be launching the menopause room too, as well, in relation to peptides. So there's so much good stuff in there, and I love seeing everybody in there. So please join me in the LongHer Life. I'm in there bi-weekly doing live calls. That's, where I'm at. So the podcast is great, but it's not something I can fully sustain right now. So episodes are every week, every other week. Please join me and enjoy this episode with Colleen. I loved chatting to her. Again, she is an expert in this space, and you can really tell by listening to this episode how she's impacted women's lives in relationship to alcohol for them and how to drink in a safe place and coming from a safe space that feels good and feels intuitive to them. So there is something to be said about being an intuitive drinker. And we kind of dive into what that means in this episode. So thank you for listening, and I will catch you soon for another one. Okay, welcome back to the show, everybody. I am so grateful that you are listening. Today, we are going to be diving into everything alcohol and actually taking a step back from alcohol. I have an expert on the show. This is Colleen Freeland, and she is a intuitive drinking coach, which is so cool. Welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here.
Thanks, Brittany. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell me about being a intuitive coach in terms of like relating that to alcohol. Like, can you kind of unpack that for me before we kind of dive into what alcohol does?
Everybody thinks the solution to too much drinking is less drinking. But the reality is it's basically if you are running through your day dysregulated, chicken with your head cut off, go, 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 that's not a precursor to mindful drinking. And the reality is your body doesn't ever appreciate you dumping a bottle of wine down its throat. Like you're not actually enjoying it. Like, a lot of my clients, they'll say, "I can't even feel it until I hit the 3rd drink." And it's like, "Well, it's not because it's not affecting you, it's because you're not feeling it." And so it's the same approach, very counterintuitive in the alcohol industry, but it works. I have hundreds and hundreds of clients. I've helped thousands of women. And it's very similar to what they do in like eating disorder programs where it's more of an immersive strategy. Go buy the food and let yourself eat it. And then let your body tell you more or less. And with women with alcohol, often we're drinking and doing other things and our brains aren't plugged into our body. We're not paying any attention. And so while, taking a break from alcohol can be wonderful, it doesn't actually teach you how to drink like a grown up. I personally learned how to drink in a frat house. And, that more is better mentality, if one drink is good, go ahead and bring me 5. Let's just keep them coming. And we get on this autopilot. And the more you drink, the more you train your brain to operate with alcohol on board, the higher your tolerance. And so there's a host of physical things that are happening there. There's also a lot of beliefs and stories you're telling yourself. And so the solution to over drinking is mindful drinking. And that doesn't mean drinking. I'm sober most days. It's learning how to stay in a regulated body so that you don't need alcohol to cope. And we can dive deeper into that because there's 2 motivations with alcohol, and you can't really see that you've switched until you look back. Like, and that's how you see the line. You're like, "Oh, yeah, like, I'm not just drinking to celebrate and socialize. I'm actually drinking to cope, to make painful situations a little bit more bearable." And that's the slippery slope that leads to, people who drink to relieve stress are 5 times more likely to develop some sort of dependency within 3 years. It's it's a mind-body thing. It's not just how much or how often you drink.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, I went through like I'm sober right now, and I think I have an app that tells me how many days I'm sober for. I think I'm coming up on like 1,000. And I it took me a long time to step away from alcohol fully. And it's so interesting that you say that, adult drinking is like mindful drinking and knowing when to have it and not have it. Because for me, I actually just do really well with black and white of like, I don't drink.
Yeah.
And now I don't even think about it. It's not something I focus on at all. So I'm not sure that I could go back to a place of like, oh, yeah, sometimes I drink and sometimes I don't, because maybe I am that person who would start drinking more again. Like I'm not sure I could be in that mindful state.
Well, I have a similar story. I was sober. I remember on Instagram holding the 1,000 day mark, so I did the same thing. And I always said, I don't need to have a drink because as long as the idea of 1 glass of wine sounds stupid or a false start, then, I identified the story I was telling myself is I like to drink more than other people. And when I do drink, I can't really control it, or at least I'm rolling the dice. And so I got to go all the way through it. So it was during COVID that the wheels fell off my particular bus. I had been a bottle of wine a night drinker for 15 years. And for the most part, didn't really think that was a problem. I mean, I kind of wished I didn't drink on a Monday or Tuesday just to limit the calories, but I didn't see that alcohol was taking anything away from my life. Was teaching hot power yoga at 7 a.m. and I was running marathons and I was doing all the things. So alcohol was just a part of my life. But, stress and crossing that line into using it more and more often as a way to cope with things I didn't necessarily need to be coping with. It was just easier to shut up and pour a drink than have the hard conversation or whatever. And so when I went into COVID, I kind of went into a free fall. All of the guardrails that had helped me control my drinking, like I had to pick my kids up, I had a hot power yoga to teach at 7 a.m. All of those things that motivated me to regulate myself were gone. And it's stay home and be a good citizen and support your local liquor stores. And so I did. And about 6 weeks into COVID, I woke up and I was like, I can't, I can't do this. And I went into it was a black or white mindset, which saved me. That's where I started. But what happened is then, fast forward 2 and 3 years, I started a sobriety coach because I was already a coach. And what I noticed was two things. My clients either were perfectly sober and got the trophy and felt really good about that, or they were still drinking, but they couldn't talk about it because I had set the agenda for them that I know how much you should drink, and that's 0. Your life's gonna be so much better without it. And so I just noticed this wasn't working. A year, 2 years later, women were coming back and they were back in the same old habit because they hadn't corrected the mindset. And so I just kind of did a trust fall with the universe. I did a lot of research on neuroplasticity and learned so much. Like the idea that alcoholism is a lifelong disease and that you have an addiction whether you're drinking or not, or that once an addict, always an addict. Like those are belief systems. AA was invented or created, I guess, before we even understood neuroplasticity. Like it's impossible for you to have a drink now after being sober for 3 years and go back into that old pattern unless you think that's where you're going. Self fulfilling prophecy, yes. But what I noticed then is for professional purposes only. I was like, all right, if I'm going to teach mindful drinking, then I can't be completely sober. And I also had gone through so many iterations of myself. I no longer saw myself as that go big or stay home person. I was able to interact with a lot of things kind of just here or there. So that idea I had addictive personality had kind of gone away. And I saw so much that even removing alcohol hadn't fixed my perfectionism, my anxiety, my fear of not being enough. So once I introduced alcohol again, though, yeah, it all came back. And I remember the first time I had half a glass of wine, it was my mother-in-law had passed away, and there was a $500 bottle of wine that was my ex-husband now was opening and, divvying out little bits. And I go, I'm not that sober. Like, come on, I want a taste of that wine. And for 2 days, I had all of this anxiety. What will people think? Will they think that I'm drinking again? Am I gonna fall back? Is that thing gonna reawaken where I can't control myself? And I remember making a very strategic decision at the time, and I said, "You know what? I trust myself to raise my hand at this point. I'm not going back to hiding. So if this isn't a good idea and it doesn't work, then I know the pathway out, and I'm not gonna lie and hide again." And so that became where I started developing the tools and the strategies, and now I've built out an entire methodology, and a lot of it is back to that same research that supports eating disorder, recovery, and that is, it's not the alcohol that's the problem, my friend. It's your relationship with yourself, the story you're telling yourself, and your brain just collects evidence that that's true. And so the approach I use is just really a complete revamping of your self identity. Our biggest fear is not that we drink too much, it's that we're not going to live up to our potential. And that's when you deal with that, when you become the version of you who is living up to your potential, even if you're a little hungover today, then you become somebody who can take or leave alcohol because you're not using it to cope with anything.
Yeah, I love that. Like, very similar to even intuitive eating that we talk about, right? I think that's very interesting. And yeah, when I started realizing it's not that I realized it was a problem, but I started realizing that I was really looking forward to the Friday night. And this was like, I don't know, I was like 25. 26. And I was just like, I it was so weird to have a Friday night without alcohol. It's like, "Oh, we're not drinking tonight? Even if we're staying in, me and my boyfriend, we're gonna have wine, right?" Like, it was so embedded in me. And then, like you said, like, every time we would celebrate something, we would drink. Every time we were upset about something, you would drink, right? So, we have all these occasions that happen in our life, and there's always alcohol there. Weddings, birthday parties, funerals, everything. And so, it's just so embedded in our culture. And then I got the real, like, turning point for me. I got an Aura ring and I saw what it did to my health. And I saw what it did to my heart, raised my heart rate, dropped my HRV, and I was floored by how bad it was for me, however you wanna say it. And so that is when I started kind of stepping away from it, and I started doing, like, 1 month sober here and there, and then more and more and more, and then went on my fertility journey and then just completely stopped. So I think it's different for everybody, and I think, my husband still drinks, and it's something that I it's interesting between us because I'm sober and he's not, and he does what you're talking about, though, like, he does the, "I've had a hard day at work, I wanna have a beer," type of thing, and I see that as problematic, and I'm not sure how to support him to be a mindful drinker when I don't drink at all. Like, do you ever, encounter that in relationships, in marriages with people?
Yeah. Yeah, and may I coach a little bit here? Your feelings are not caused by how much your husband does or doesn't drink or why you think he should drink. Like, your feelings about his feelings, your thoughts about his thoughts, that it those are still your thoughts and feelings. And so what what happens in relationships is you do get the person who's counting the drinks and drinking the drinks, and then there becomes this power dynamic, like, "I would feel better if you didn't do that. I would think better of you, or I would trust you more if you didn't do that." And honestly, this all comes back to relationship with self. You know, your experience of how you feel, what are the fears that are coming up for you? What are you making it mean? Even that he has a beer because he's had a hard day at work. Like, and that is also like what you're speaking to. It's very counterintuitive, but the more you dig into the science, and you've got actual feedback on your Aura ring. I threw the damn thing away. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't even sober. I didn't need somebody telling me I didn't sleep well last night. I didn't need to micromanage like this. This also is so much what you if you think that this is alcohol is a ritual and, "Oh, one glass, it's gonna enhance this meal," it will. And if you think that it's ruining your health and it's gonna ruin your sleep and it's gonna cause cancer, also true. Of course, you can drink yourself stupid, yes. But the bottom line is that everybody's relationship with alcohol is different, changing. What my body needs now at 52 years old is not the same that it needs. What I always say is anybody can be sober, but all that matters is right here, right now. Like, it's the story you're telling yourself that you're never gonna drink again because you don't trust yourself to make a different decision or to self-correct if you make a mistake. So these stories we tell about ourselves about our relationship with alcohol that we present to the world. I'm a drinker, I'm a daily drinker, I'm a problem drinker. Like, all of those are stories. Like, all time is now, and what matters is how you feel in the moment. So how it affects a relationship, honestly, anybody that's concerned with that, you need to get coaching on yourself to find out what you're making it mean and how to soothe yourself so that you're not left uneasy because his behavior is the source of your safety.
I would love to invite you to be a part of my new private online women's health and longevity community called the LongHer Life community. This is a space where I do biweekly calls with everyone live on Zoom. So these Q&As are where you can pre-submit questions or even come up live on the call and ask all of your health questions. I also do private podcasts where all of the guests who come on this very show hop into my private community and answer your pre-submitted questions. And I do protocols. Right now, I'm releasing one protocol a week, and these range from my latest women's longevity workout protocol to peptides, morning routine, hormone replacement therapy, everything like that. These are deep in research. What is the latest thing that everyone is saying, what you need to know, and has the PDF so you can download it, keep it on your computer, phone, or even print it. This community has so much content, but honestly, the best part is that there's so many women in there. It's a live, vibrant community where women are answering questions daily, talking to each other, and participating. And we all get to meet every other week. I really invite you to join. It's only $97 a month. This is so cheap. It is so affordable. I literally spend more on skincare probably in a week. And I wanted to create a place where we can all come together, talk about women's longevity and intuition. There is no other place like this on the internet. I am very serious. There's no other place where you can talk about living in alignment with yourself and your values, big life decisions around relationships and work and where you want to move and live, and also find protocols that are about your health, that are tailored to you as a woman, not men, but you as a woman. There are moms, there are grandmas, there are women in there without kids. This is a space and a community for women built by women. And I invite you to join us. Again, $97 a month. If you pay for the year, it's actually $970. So you get 2 months for free, which is so affordable. So I really want to extend my invite to you. Join us. There's so much content daily, weekly. Soon we're going to be doing challenges. We're going to be doing all sorts of things, themes. And I also announce special things in there before anywhere else. So like my VIP one-on-one consulting and my retreats and immersions and things like that. I would love to have you to join us. It is linked on my website. It's in my bio, and it is in the show notes of every single episode. Just go click and join us, and I will see your beautiful face on our next community call. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point. It's like, how much are you projecting onto the other person versus like,
Yeah.
or projecting of what you're actually dealing with, right? Inside.
Yeah.
Like, I don't drink right for multiple reasons, but I'm also like, I have a toddler. I'm a new mom, and I don't feel like I'm personally in a space where alcohol is something I'm comfortable with my kid in my house. Maybe one day, right? Like maybe one day when he's older and all these things, but I guess it's different for everybody. But I have a little brother, and I say little, he's 28, 29. He's 29. And him and his fiance drink a lot. They live down in the States, and they were in Chicago for a long time, and Chicago is very bars and going out lifestyle, and it's something that I've seen, and again, it's like when they come and visit, they drink a lot, and how much of that when I watch them drink is me projecting, "Oh, that's so bad for your health," as somebody who's, like, so into health optimization, and how much is that of that is like, "Oh, actually, I think this is a problem." Like, where do you draw the line of, "I'm projecting my beliefs onto you, and actually, I think you have a real problem."
Well, the core crux of coaching is you can't help somebody that doesn't want help. Your perception of their problem is your perception. So what would first have to be acknowledged here is that you may not enjoy spending a lot of time with them because you're not on the same energetic length and you're seeing and while alcohol has a lot to do with it, the bottom line is why are you forcing yourself to spend time with people that are three sheets to the wind and bar after bar after bar? So it's still about creating safety for yourself. And then, like, I guess, mind your business on your side of the street unless somebody comes to you and says, I'm really worried about my drinking. I'm not having fun. Then it's not your business. Your business is your boundaries about what you will and won't tolerate, how you want to spend your time and connect with people. And that's the painful part. That's the codependent part is like, it's as a sister. You're like, well, I can't be okay if he's not okay. Well, it doesn't sound like he's thinking he's not okay. So you're worrying and eating up your own bandwidth trying to solve a problem when for him it's a lifestyle and it's a choice that hasn't bit him in the ass yet. I mean, I don't know. But like, what if you trusted him to figure it out? And what if you trusted yourself to make decisions about how you want to spend your time and what you find enjoyable?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously hard with family, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that comes up with you and with your clients is like, I understand, that's your life and your decisions, and at the same time, I want what's best for you, and I want you to be healthy and live a long life and all of these things. So, it's like playing into that dynamic of older sister helping younger brother or wife helping husband or whatever it is, right? But then also understanding that, yeah, it's your body and it's your choice. And at one point, you get to decide, and I've talked to him before about it, and he's still on the same path. And so I I don't bring it up anymore because it's not like you said, like he has to be the one who wants to change and
Yeah.
and be willing to like look at it for what it is.
Yeah.
Like even with all the things I do in terms of longevity and biohacking and peptides and all these things, I don't really coach my family. Like I don't tell them what to
Right.
do. But they come to
Yeah.
me and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna try this one thing," and then we have a conversation about it. So maybe it's just
Yeah.
that same approach with alcohol.
Well, I so identify with you and where you're at. I was a hardcore vegan for 15 years. So now I still drank because as long as it was organic, it was fine. But give me a water in a plastic water bottle. Oh, bitch, please. Like, no, 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 no. And excuse me, there's like processed oil in this, so it's like your brain can get really hyper focused on anything. And biohacking was my thing. I was a gut into gut health and, so many biohacks and I really enjoyed that part of my life, and it served a purpose. It was my passion. I was on Instagram doing all the things, but bottom line is, like, your perception of long and happy and healthy life, like, now my standards, I'm gonna laugh and tell you they've fallen so far, but honestly, my interests, my values have changed, and that happens over a lifetime. I no longer need, well, I don't have time to micromanage every ingredient in all my food. Beggars can't be choosers. If I'm coming to your house and you made me a meal, Imma say thank you and where's the forks? But at one point in my life, I raised 7 kids as a staunch vegan for 12 years. And so I think that your priorities and how you perceive a healthy life, that's how you perceive it. Like, there are people in blue zones in Italy that smoke and drink and they're, they live past 100. So their definition of what health really means, so much of this is the mind body connection. And if you believe that as long of a healthy life, having red wine every night with your dinner as you can, being a staunch vegan or very food rule person, there's no right way to live. And I think the perception that your way is the right way, I lived with that for years. And I can tell you I like my life better now that I've let it go.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, because everyone kinda thinks that, right? Like, your way's the right way, and it's not even just about health, it's about everything. It's about, like, how you spend your money, it's about your career, where you live, everyone is like, "Oh, but do it this way and you'll be fine because I did it that way and I'm fine." But we're all different, so, like, how could we all do it the one way, right? I love that approach, and that makes sense. I just spent this past winter traveling, and I was traveling Central America and then into Mexico, and it actually really helped to I was gone for 4 we were gone for 4 months, my whole family. It really helped to kind of take a step back from the intensity of biohacking and in such a beautiful way, and I already knew this before we left because 'cause I've traveled before, but when you travel, you're so forced to instead of using the red light therapy panel, like, you're actually watching the sunset, and you're like, "Oh, wait, all of this tech is actually just built on natural processes and natural things that happen that we just miss out on because of the way that we live in Western society." So, there is a way to, like, bring in that gentle, softer side and the biohacking, I think, and that actually even ties into intuitive living even further, which ties into intuitive drinking, I think.
It's allowing it's being tied to the experience of things instead of the idea of how things should be, and I have traveled with not the red light, but I'm older than you, but handfuls of supplements, and I'm in a foreign country eating exquisite food, but I'm worried about going back to my cabin because I've gotta take my D3 and I've gotta take this and I've gotta take my probiotics and all this stuff. And, there's an element of fear driving that. There's also an element of excitement and learning and challenge. Like, it's all of the things. Nothing is pure and perfect. And it's really about exploring your truth from an experiential self versus I read one more study. I mean, I used to be able to go head to head with a PhD on the different organisms in the microbiome. And I prided myself on that. But that was all theoretical knowledge, and I was living in my head, not in my body. Meanwhile, I'm drinking enough vodka to, kill a horse. So it's just learning to live life and value your experience in the present moment and being open to your truth because it's always changing. Like, what's true yesterday's truth is tomorrow's bullshit. There's gonna be a new study and a new approach and a new biohack, and you can try to keep up if that makes you happy. But from 54 post-menopause, I am much more I feel like I was so happy living an intense life like that. And now it's just, "Oh, I think I'll just watch the sunset and get the same thing," you know? It's more like my primary value at this point is peace, not perfection.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something so beautiful about that, and that's what those blue zones get right. And I've been to the blue zone in Costa Rica, and that's exactly it. It's just like it's not even a work-life balance, like, that whole work-life balance concept doesn't exist there. It's just that the way that their whole lifestyle is like all the stores close down at 6 p.m. and everyone goes to the beach and watches the sunset.
Yeah,
Stores are actually closed on Sundays still, right? Like, there's
yeah,
just this idea of, like, less perfectionism, I'm gonna do all these things, and more, I'm gonna live in rhythm with myself and with nature, and I just
yeah.
think that's so beautiful and very hard to do depending on the city that you might live in Canada, in the States, like, I just think it's tough.
Well, it's hard, yes, and your brain will help you get whatever you think you want. And if the way you think is that I'll feel better when I figure this out, I read another study, I order this supplement, I do 3 months on this program, whatever, then your dopamine is tied to that. But, like, your body speaks energy, not English. And all of her needs only exist in the present moment. And when you learn, this is the crux of how I help women change their relationship with alcohol, is that if you we're moving through life in a regulated nervous system, which you only need kindergarten words to explain and prescribe. If you were moving through life in a regulated nervous system, you would drink like somebody who's regulated. You would eat like somebody who's regulated. You would show up in relationship like somebody who's regulated. And so to me, that's the ultimate biohack is understanding that every disorder in the DSM-5, every addiction, it's all comes down to regulated or dysregulated. It's pretty simple. And when you learn to solve for problems in the present moment in your nervous system, even the thoughts that you think, like, for example, my brother has a problem. How does that thought resonate in your body? Like, this is the litmus test. Does it contract your heart? Then it's not a helpful thought. I trust my brother to live his best life and ask for help because he's smart if he needs it. That opens your heart. That releases some of that pressure. And so when you learn how to guide your thoughts by testing them, your bullshit detectors, this divine yes or no, more or less, better or worse of your ideas. That's what most people don't understand is that your feelings aren't caused by all that out there. They're caused by your perspective and, of course, how your nervous system's been patterned and where that perspective comes from. But all problems, the only problem that exists is how you feel in any given moment. Otherwise, there's just circumstances. There's just problem or there's opportunities, there's challenges, but it's all about how you're responding to your own thoughts. And that's really to me, that's the ultimate biohack. Then everything else can kind of yes or no on this supplement or red light therapy or microdosing or whatever, like does this feel like it opens my mind and lifts my heart? That's a good idea. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I do a lot of that work with my marriage, with my business. And I remember first learning about thoughts and how they create your reality quite a few years ago. And I think it's like in a day we have like 60,000 thoughts or something insane. And then learning that not every single thought is 100% true or 100% reflection of you. So you can actually have thoughts that are whatever they might be, but it does not mean it's like, "Oh, I thought that, so that means I'm a bad person," or, "Oh, I thought that, that means I'm this label," whatever we're trying to do. And it was so freeing when I realized that because up until that point, this was quite a while ago, like, you think about your thoughts and you think, "Oh, yeah, I thought that, so that must be true," but that is not actually how it works.
Well, and the what I think about thoughts and truth is that any thought can be true. You've got people who think the earth is flat. You've got I mean, and they're living their life through that mental construct and they're still alive. Like the truth is your experience. And that's the thought is just you trying to translate that experience so that somebody else can have that same emotional experience. But your thoughts are the equivalent to the words on the menu. Your felt experience is eating the food. Like, you can read and maybe you have got an accurate description, it's better than other people's, but once you realize that there's no such thing as a true story, they're all stories. They're cherry-picked sets of data, and every thought in your mind has been planted there by your mother, by your religion, by your school system, by the culture you grow up in, by the podcasts that you listen to. Most of your thoughts, none of our thoughts are original. We're just taking them, which one feels good, and then combining them with others and getting creative and coming up with our own ideas. But all language is learned. Your true desires are really basic. I want more water. I want more sleep. I want more sunlight. I want more connection. That's why I say it's really kindergarten words and terms. Everything else is entertainment.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, it's actually so simple, really.
It's simple.
It's so simple. And there's so many stories that we tell ourselves that you have the ability to change and alter over time, like you said, right? Like over your lifetime, you might believe something today, but in 10 years, you're going to believe something so different. I want to bring it back to alcohol for a second here. So, in practicality terms, if somebody drinks and is a drinker, whatever, however they identify, and how could they tell the difference between, "Oh, I've had a hard day at work and I want this drink for relief," versus like how can they see in that moment that that drink is giving relief and then make a different decision to take a bath or go for a walk? Like, how do you actually practice the mindfulness in the moment before you have the alcohol or while you have the alcohol? Does that make sense?
Yeah. A couple of things, which is understanding that I want a drink is a thought. And if you're a regular drinker, habit formation in your brain is just collapsing. Like, let's keep it simple. At one point, you thought, oh, I've had a hard day. And there was a list of options on the menu. I'll take a walk. I'll hang out with so and so. I'll pet my puppy. I'll pour a drink. I'll go to the gym. And like the algorithm, the more you click on a solution, the less the other options show up in your feed. And so that's the habit formation. And then the thinking collapses as well. Instead of thinking, I've had a hard day. I want some relief. I think I'll have a drink. It becomes, I need a drink. And so that's the collapse of the thought pathways. So if somebody is wanting to know why they want to have a drink, then that's not something you need to think about. That's something you go into your body. And because you don't want the alcohol, you want how you think the alcohol will make you feel. And for those of us high achievers, we want to feel relief. We want to feel like we can let the pressure out of the cooker. We want to feel like we are done for the day. We want to feel like we've earned and deserved a reward. So alcohol is always everything, every food you eat, every pill you swallow, every conversation you have. It is actually about solving an emotional issue. I feel this way. I want to feel that way. If I have this conversation, then I'm going to feel better or worse, or I'm going to be clear or like whatever. And so it's not about the alcohol. And one of the things I teach my clients is get regulated first so that if you decide you want to have a drink, the version of you who is regulated drinks very differently. It's very easy to drink mindfully. You don't want to drink yourself numb and dumb because there's nothing to escape in your body. And then to speak to your question, it's very hard to know because your brain is an excellent twister of logic. I would have never told you that I drank because I was stressed. I would have told you that I just like the taste, that it pairs nicely with this meal. I'm celebrating my day. And all of that was true. And also, not having a drink would have really had some patience wearing thin. Like, how do you know your relationship with alcohol? Remove it for 5 minutes. So many people don't identify as I'm drinking because I'm mad or sad or anxious. I'm just drinking because I enjoy it. Okay, put it down. Call me in 5 minutes and tell me how that's going. That's how you know if you're using alcohol as a coping mechanism. Like if you can just take it or leave it, like, hey, do you want some vanilla birthday cake? And I'm like, I prefer chocolate. It's not even here. I'll just skip it. That's neutral. That's take it or leave it. I could take the cake. I don't think I'm going to. But if you're gonna knock over small children because the waiter's not coming fast enough to get you your glass of wine, then you are drinking for emotional reasons. And so it's really just about self-awareness, and it's about what you really want. And like I said in the beginning, most of us, our greatest fear isn't that we drink too much unless we think like you and we're biohackers and, alcohol is a negative, it's a carcinogen and all that. But for those people that don't live in that world, then our biggest fear is we're not living up to our potential. And so if that alcohol is keeping you from making sense of an argument that you had or making plans for something you need to do tomorrow or giving you permission to shut your brain off because you're crazy and you don't ever fricking stop and you don't know how to regulate, then that's just information. It's not a problem. It's information. And if your goal is to live in peace and a regulated nervous system, like you're like for me, that's my compass. Then it's much easier to differentiate why I'm drinking or not drinking.
Yeah, yeah, it makes so much sense, and I have been there, like, so many times when I was drinking of, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it was always emotional, right? Like, it was comfort. It was and then during COVID as well, for sure. It was like, "What is happening to the world? This feels good. This feels like something that is, like, warm and cozy, and it's a red glass of wine, and, like, it's fine. It's got antioxidants in it and polyphenols and, whatever story you tell yourself." Yeah, but I still started to see it as a crutch for sure. For sure.
Yeah, yeah,
And you realize, like, what am I escaping? Like, what about my life I not like that I feel like I need alcohol to help me get away from?
yeah. Yes, and those are very important questions. And often, the longer you've been drinking and living this way, the more there is to unpack. But sometimes it's just a habit, a way of being that somebody that's really intense, that identifies stress as go, 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 and they don't know how to just be. So, just as important as unpacking all those emotional reasons, it's understanding that your brain will help you get what you want. I want to live in a I want to feel like I'm my own source of safety. You've said a couple times you identified it as a crutch. So the first thing is I don't want a crutch. It's not about alcohol. It's about what do I need in this moment and how do I meet my own needs instead of outsourcing those to another person or a substance or a food or an activity or anything like that. But to me, from this side of 52 years old, being your own source of everything, including safety and unconditional validation and support and confidence, being your own source of that is the ultimate superpower. Because when you're no longer afraid of your own feelings, it's like even in the example with your brother, you're afraid of how you'll feel if he crashes and burns. If he messes up his life, "Oh, I would feel so bad." What if you weren't afraid to feel that because you trusted that, "Well, I would handle that. It'd be hard to watch. I'd be there to support him." If you were confident in your own ability to manage your emotions in real time, then things out there would be a lot less scary. I even went through a bankruptcy in my 20s. My first husband and I started this business, and the fear, 3 years of fighting, feast or famine and cash flow. And then the worst thing that could happen happened. It was such a relief. Like, oh my God, like, it was actually the best years of our life in our marriage. We ended up having 2 more kids, living on cash, being humble, and we were the bankruptcy that we were afraid of actually became a portal to a different way of living and new opportunities. We were both doing better professionally 3 years later than we had struggling with the business. We're always only afraid of how we'll feel, and when you get that and you take responsibility for that, you don't have to spend so much energy controlling and fixing and figuring out everything out there.
I love that. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a really something to actually think about and reflect on because yeah, I mean, even just thinking day to day, like when do you even have time to be like, "Oh, what am I afraid of feeling? Okay, now I've identified it. Now what?" Like it's very interesting to like be that intuitive and be able to see the writing on the wall for it and be able to change, like actually do something about it as well.
It's a skill. It's a skill we are not taught. We are taught that on the bell curve of emotions, anything less than 50%, weakness, anger, frustration, fear, shame, guilt, those are bad feelings. You don't want to feel those. So do whatever the hell you can to avoid those feelings. And we are introduced into the rat race that is the world. Perform, achieve, prove, earn, all of these things, and that's how we're taught to think. Again, that's why whether it's alcohol or any other maladaptive coping mechanism, it's a thinking problem, not a drinking problem.
Mm, that's so interesting. Especially women, I feel like we are from a very young age, we're taught to be like perfect and take care of others and perform. And yeah, I think there's, oh, I don't know. I don't know if men feel that same pressure as women, but I definitely see it in all of my friends.
Yeah.
This idea of keeping it all together,
Yeah.
keeping your shit tight, you know?
Keeping it tight, leaving it at the door. So we are conditioned, programmed, trained in professional, successful situations to never let them see you cry, never lose your shit, never get passive aggressive. And yes, you have to do that to survive. Nobody likes a crying hot mess. And we're just trying to have a meeting about what the email's going to say. Like, keep your tears. But what happens is that when you exist like that all day and you don't understand that you have built up an accumulation of unprocessed emotions, and then you go home and pour alcohol on that, then over time, all of that gets unprocessed and undealt with. And then the gap between who you think you are and who you're presenting to the world gets bigger and bigger. And that's how you start feeling. This is what I experienced. I started feeling like an imposter in my own life. I didn't like to look people in the eye lest they see the dark hole in my soul of I don't even give a fuck about any of this. I thought that less of me was more. I could be witty and funny and show up at a party and then mic drop the mic, go home and pour myself a drink. I was just performing and I was dead inside because I had lost that sense with myself because I didn't understand how to process my emotions or how to allow myself to feel things. I thought if I started screaming, I was never going to stop and they'd have to bring the paddy wagon. And so that's what I call emotional constipation. When you drink on emotional constipation, yeah, it's not gonna go well.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so I wonder if honestly, like the alcohol dependency and even food dependency or any substance dependency is actually partially a reflection of society's conditioning of emotions are not okay and let's not express ourselves. And even not just with women, like my husband, his family, like it's very tuck it under the rug, don't get angry, don't get upset. Like, and he's grown up that way and he's trying to rewrite it and then teach our son differently. So it impacts men as well, just I think a little differently.
Yeah, yeah. And so he was programmed and conditioned like that, which it makes a lot of sense that you're gonna grab a beer. And I can just say, may I say that the best thing you can do is not make it about the alcohol. Inviting him in to process a day, tell me more, even if he's drinking a beer, let him have it. Because that's the thing that I've learned working with thousands of women is that trying to remove the coping mechanism before you have built the capacity to cope is not a good thing. And we are conditioned in the sober industry to think recovery doesn't begin until you're willing to get sober. So we will have this conversation when you've not had a drink. And of course, I don't recommend talking to somebody who's intoxicated and trying to process, but it's like kind of like two ships passing in a night. And I see that with my clients. Give yourself permission to do what you're already doing, which is the best you fucking can every single day. Just give yourself permission to do that. Stop beating yourself up. If alcohol's serving a purpose right now, sit down and just be a little more mindful. Write in your journal while you're drinking your drink. Take 5 minutes and build that practice out because what you'll find is that you'll start to experience relief from doing some of these other practices. Now your list of menu options starts to repopulate with other things. So you build the desire to live regulated, not live without alcohol. And even with your husband, like the best thing you can do is not see his drinking as a problem. That's then going to plant the idea in his mind that he has a problem and then start the overthinking and questioning and all that. It's like invite him what would he be doing if he didn't have a beer in his hand? Invite him to still let's talk about this. Let's get deeper. It's not about the alcohol and it's not black or white where okay, I guess you're using alcohol to cope. I guess we'll have to deal with this tomorrow. And now I'm going to be resentful because you're not showing up the way I want you to. Show up the way you want to. If it doesn't go well, then set your boundaries. But seeing his drinking as he's not coping is the problem. The solution is how do I engage more with him so that he can feel more seen and heard and relieve some of that pressure?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I mean people talk about how when you drink, right? Like what's that saying? When you're drinking and like you actually speak what's on your mind, there's like a
Yeah.
saying, I forget what it
In
is.
vino e veritas, I believe that saying is.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, people actually spill all of their emotions and their thoughts after however many drinks. And it's like, okay, how do we actually get you to be okay expressing those emotions without the alcohol? But like you said, like a starting point is okay, you had a hard day, so you're grabbing a beer. Let's not even talk about the beer. Let's talk about the hard day.
Right. That's what everybody goes wrong is their little problem detector goes off and you're like, well, and it's like, it's not a problem. It's his solution right now. And it can coexist with other solutions. The more you make it a problem, the more it becomes a problem in the relationship and for him. And then now he feels bad about wanting to get a drink. That's how you end up with vodka in your closet and, hiding all of it because your partner's counting your drinks and you just need a fucking drink. And that's not helping. And so understanding that trusting people to learn and process. It's not about the alcohol. And that is the one thing I say that's so counterintuitive. If you want to change the way you drink, stop trying to change the way you drink. Accept yourself and see yourself on a roadmap from here to 1 year from now. All right, I'm going to increase my capacity. I'm going to process some of my emotions. I'm going to learn how to set an emotional goal. I'm going to use the iterative mindset to see if I can move the needle on this behavior 5, 10% at a time. I'm going to celebrate my wins. I'm going to start speaking nicely to myself. I'm going to love myself unconditionally, whether I'm sober or whether I'm hungover. Those things will then cause you to become the person who can just take it or leave it.
I love that. That's hard work. That's
Yes,
deep hard work.
it's easier to quit drinking.
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah, you're really looking at yourself and taking it for what it is, what you see in the mirror. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. This has been so insightful, and I really appreciated this conversation because it's just such a different perspective. If people listening to this want to work with you or listen to your podcast, how can they do that?
The name of my podcast is It's Not About the Alcohol. So it's everywhere. And then my website is emotionalsobrietycoaching.com. I've got free masterclass, quizzes, all the stuff. So you can learn more about me kind of in one spot. on the website. And then on social media, I'm at Hangover Whisperer.
Oh, cute. I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'll put that in the show notes and down below so everyone can find you easily. Thank you so much. This was great. And I will definitely be checking out some of your work as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Brittany.
Thank you for listening to Biohacking with Brittany. I hope today's conversation gave you something to take into your own life, a practice, a perspective, or simply a reminder to trust your body. If you love this episode, please leave a review, share it with someone else who could benefit, and join me over on Instagram at biohackingbrittany for more. And if you're ready to go deeper, you can explore my retreats, community, favorite tools, all linked for you in the show notes. Until next time, remember, your body already knows.